Arne Slot. Tra-la-la-la-la. Jürgen Klopp. Tra-la-la-la-la.
Liverpool win the league again for the second time in their Premier League history. 20 league titles, equal with Man United, and I've got a resident Liverpool fan, Praddy, on the podcast with me. Congratulations are in order.
Yes, thank you very much.
This is your moment. This is your moment.
I'm slightly saddened by the fact that I don't have a Liverpool jersey. And fun fact is, I have two Liverpool jerseys. One was totally ruined in the washing machine, and the other one is I bought a size 2 short. So yeah, not exactly ideal. But I'm still wearing red to support the club that I love, the club that I've supported for over, I think, close to 2 decades now.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I don't think, so I've always seen other fans celebrate titles and celebrate Premier League victories. I've been like, yeah, we'll get it another time, that's not an issue. But I can finally say that, yeah, man, winning Premier Leagues is a whole different feeling.
Has it sunk in yet? Are you still in the buzzing party atmosphere? How do you feel?
Oh yeah, I still am. I still kind of am not yet at my 100% because I still haven't seen the trophy being lifted.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the celebrations were insane. Yesterday even though I had work this morning, I still spent until midnight watching all of the celebrations, which I really, really loved. Whether this was the same sort of feeling as back in 2019, 2020, no. I think that was the point where you felt, right? 30 years of hurt and 30 years of not winning anything. And this whole thing of Jürgen Klopp and the team just being bridesmaids, right? So I think that hit me more than this time. This time it kind of was like, yeah, we were there and it felt like, yeah, this was just a matter of time. But I think since it had happened 5 years ago, it was a different feeling, a great feeling nonetheless, but still I think not as much of euphoria as I think the first one was.
But when did you know, this season, when did you know, okay, the title is ours, because Liverpool were not, in the beginning of the season, that team which were the best team on paper, by any means, right? People still said, okay, City... Yeah, sure. So, exactly, right? When do you... And I think it's also special to win a league title when you're not the best team on paper. I think the last team to do it was probably Conte, maybe even... dare I say City last season, right? But when you look at this league title win, when did you know? Because I think Liverpool were always top of the league, dominating. You guys started very strongly.
I think obviously you always look at after the Christmas period, right? Because that's when you really gauge whether this team could really take it to the wire, because you have these games coming quick and fast. And the fact that we only had the Nottingham Forest loss, and then we were still quite ahead of some of the other teams, especially Arsenal at that point in time, because I'd already seen the dip off in City. So I think City's dip maybe was, you could kind of see that. And maybe I think the first glimpse of where I thought it could be possible was when we beat City. And that's always a good marker, right? Beating City.
But as you said, right, City had dropped off. Even away and at home, it wasn't really a doubt, right?
It doesn't matter. You're still beating Manchester City. It's
away.
Still a big away.
Yeah.
It was still a big thing. I think.
When was that game, though? When was that game?
I think November, December.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was quite.
So it's pretty
early. Yeah.
Pretty early. Yeah. But it's still a good marker, because even in 1920 we beat City in November, and that was a good marker to put down and be like, here we are. And yeah, there also they had a sort of drop, even though they came second. Now that was there, but of course we had a terrible start to 2025. Now I mean, terrible. It's not like we lost anything. We drew a lot of games. We drew to Everton.
Sure.
We drew to Manchester United. You know, these kind of games where it gave Arsenal some
that
sort
edge,
of hope. That edge and that hope. But I don't know. I think I probably, especially after Arsenal's injuries, whenever you guys had Saka get injured and all of that, I think at that point I was fairly certain that we could hold on. We weren't losing games, and which was the great thing. We always came back. At least we drew, and I thought if Liverpool was to drop points, I didn't see Arsenal go on this crazy run like they did last year.
Yeah, exactly. The
drop was coming there.
And you know, you mentioned the previous title win as well, right? And of course, like, you're one of the huge global fans that Liverpool have. You're not, living in Liverpool and you haven't experienced that. But that title, right?
Give me a job in Liverpool so that I could be those local.
Yeah, but I mean, even that season, right, where people said, oh, it was a COVID title or whatever, like, before COVID hit, Liverpool already had walked to the title. Out of like 27 games, you guys were 25 wins, 1 draw, no losses, something crazy.
We needed 1 or 2 wins to really cement our title. So it's not like we were winning it or playing. If anything, I think City played a lot more games in their title win next season in COVID.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And the thing is, like, that win for a Liverpool fan, as you said, right, was after such a long time, and probably for people who are our age, it's maybe the first time you've seen your team win the Premier League, right? And I get that will always be special, but this time I just felt like, the new manager, he's come in, won it in the first season. Like, it's an elite list of managers who have done that in the Premier League. Conte, Ancelotti, Pellegrini,
predominantly like, all Chelsea managers
and Pellegrini. And I think it's special because even at the start of the season, like, we were talking about season predictions even on the channel. I was saying the best Liverpool could do is third, right? Especially because I remember back in the summer, you guys were chasing like Zubimendi because you needed that 6 in midfield, and then you started a season with Gravenberch, and Gravenberch obviously performed exceptionally well. But it still felt like the squad was lacking depth, right? So in the start of the season, where do you think, honestly, Liverpool could have been? Like, I know you probably think they overperformed in the league, but what would have been a successful season at the start?
Top 4. I think we were good enough for top 4.
Yeah.
My only concern was this manager coming from the Eredivisie to the Premier League and how he was going to adapt. We've seen the drop off many a times with not only different clubs but even with Liverpool. So I think, like, for example, you see probably Benitez after he left, or I don't want to say Brendan Rodgers anyway kind of was on the downhill before that. But what I'm trying to say is that we've seen it before. We've seen it with a different club. So I would have taken a top 4. I wasn't expecting a great season. Honestly speaking, there were a lot of question marks. Even the first few victories, or rather Ipswich was fine. And then you had the Nottingham Forest loss, which was like, okay, maybe just get back to reality and that you are going to be fighting for the top 4. And I clearly thought it was going to be a City-Arsenal fight to the title. And we definitely were better than United. I think Chelsea was the other team that I was a little...
They started strong, They started very strong.
I did not see the fight from the mid-table clubs like a Nottingham Forest or a Newcastle or an Aston Villa. I did not see that sort of tight battle come from there. But... definitely a third or fourth, maybe a fourth. Fourth is what I would have taken, and I've been like, that's a successful season.
Yeah,
I wouldn't have cared for trophies as well. So
and I mean, I think that's the logical, like, realistic expectation as a fan, right? Like, understanding the context and all of that as well.
The context is important because you're taking over the man who's rebuilt the club, essentially, who's brought back life to this club that had been in the doldrums for many years. We've been a sleeping giant, if you want to call it like that. I think we've had points like whether it be Rafa in 2008 or you had Brendan Rodgers in 2013, where we've had spurts of really good years built on certain players.
Yeah, and right now it's like a foundation, right? Like Klopp built a sustainable foundation where, barring that 1 or 2 seasons where, Liverpool also were riddled with injuries and had a bit of a drop off, like you always expect Liverpool to compete for the title. And I think that sustained success is what Klopp has brought. And which brings me to a very interesting question, right? Because I really love seeing this thing what we showed like in the beginning, right? Like Arne Slot was, welcomed into Anfield by Klopp, and now he returned the favor. Do you think this is Slot's team or Klopp's team?
First off, I really loved. So I was taken aback when Klopp announced Slot that way. I was like, wow, that's a crazy way to announce a new manager coming in.
Yeah.
But my God, when I heard yesterday Arne Slot, essentially give back the sort of gratitude and respect to Jurgen Klopp and what he's built, that nearly choked me up. Like it really teared me up there because here's a guy who kind of understood what he's been given, and that sort of ties in with your question as in, is this Klopp's team and Slot's, or is this Slot's team? It definitely is Klopp's team in terms of the names on the paper. Like Slot has had no influence in terms of who he's brought in. He's probably only brought in Chiesa, which I don't even think, I don't know, he's not even
played much,
so,
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm not sure how much of a decision that was his or it was Michael Edwards. And when he has, I think Chiesa has had moments of brilliance, which is great. But it's Klopp's team on paper, but Slot's team on the field. And by that I mean it's the style, the intricacies, the passages of play. I don't see much of Klopp in what I saw this entire season.
Because I actually have seen Arne Slot's Feyenoord, and they were like a chance creating like machine, right? Like every game in the league, they were like 30 chances, and it was like numbers were off the charts. And when he came to the Premier League, you see a lot where managers try to replicate what they've done in their previous job and only work with one system. Like Ten Hag tried to do that with United and he failed because you can't do that. You can't replicate an Ajax with United. And one thing with Slot was he took this heavy metal gegenpressing football of Klopp and just slowed it down a bit. Like it just seemed a bit more restrained, when Liverpool played throughout the season.
But honestly, if you ask me, I see a lot of similarities between this season and actually the season that we won the league last time, which is even the season that we won the league last time, there was less of heavy metal, a lot more controlled possession and a lot more controlled passages of play where we didn't blow teams away. Even there it was, okay, I don't know if you're going to get cancelled by this, but it's stereotypical German efficiency. Yeah, that's what it was in 2019-2020, where it was you just scored early on, or you scored and then you just controlled the game with pass. You obviously had counter-attacks and all of that, but you killed the game with the way you controlled it. You didn't have, the front three and the mid three bombarding.
Well, I don't think that's sustainable to do for 90 minutes to win any league title. Play 38 games that way.
But that's what we also suffered from when we tried to do that.
Exactly. But what I'm trying to say is like when you look at dominance in football, teams do exactly what you just said. Like they try to score, they conserve energy, they have bursts of pace. And usually Klopp's teams were really known for like counter-attacking, and every time I used to banter with like a Liverpool fan, I used to say it's like sophisticated hoofball, like, and no insult to Liverpool because you had Trent and Robertson just like pinging it like crossfield balls to, Mane and Salah's feet, and then they used to create chances on the counter like crazy. And I didn't see that much of it this season, and I really thought that teams would sit back a little bit more against Liverpool. And around the time you were mentioning, like January, February, when Liverpool had those draws, you could see that with teams a lot more. Like they were sitting back a little bit against Liverpool. I think they realized that, okay, they don't have that threat against a mid block or low block. And a lot of big teams struggle with that, right? And that brings me to my next question, which is Liverpool have won the league. Where do they go from here?
Where do they go from here? Well, like I said, we aren't the best team in the league in terms of just the names and on the paper. We performed great as a team, albeit we've had some luck with the drop-offs in performances from the likes of Arsenal and City, which again is not Liverpool's fault, right? Like you can't blame Liverpool for having this sort of 15-point gap or so just because the other team decided not to show up. We've just come in each match week and did what we had to do. We tried to make it exciting as well, man. The number of times we've actually let the opposition score first and had to come back and kind of win games from those losing positions. It's been insane. Like I'm nearly gone bald, watching my team, but it's ridiculous. But I just think from here where we need to go is obviously need to strengthen a lot more. I think there are positions which are weak. It needs to be a lot more of a Slot team, right? Slot, as much as he got or inherited a really good squad, I do think that there are players where he's not comfortable with, whom he's not comfortable with, or he feels like there are better options out there, and I feel that's what he would aim to do this summer, right? So from where do we go on here? Hopefully we build upon this league win. Overall as a season, I think missing out on the Carabao Cup was a bit of a bummer. Mm-hmm. I love that Newcastle won it, obviously. Great for them. Love the city, love the people, love the team as well. But yeah, I think I kind of just, the Carabao Cup is our bread and butter. We've won probably 10 of them. So it's a bit of a bummer that we did that. The Champions League, I don't have too much of an issue with. So as much as it's always I always knew we were going to get into trouble the moment we won most of our league games. I think only the last one is something that we lost, but I think that was against Feyenoord, right? Or no, it was against someone in the Dutch team.
It's probably Feyenoord. They were the only ones playing then. Yeah.
Yes. So it was crazy. That at that point of time we had anyway topped the table, but I didn't imagine PSG being so strong, but actually after watching them play, I'm like, yeah, okay, we deserved it.
Fair.
And that's an insane team. So I'm not too bummed about the Champions League. It's also a roll of the dice as to what kind of a draw you get.
Which is true, I guess. In the semi-finals, like I do think that would have been a great game over two legs. In the semi-finals, I think Liverpool would have probably even gone into that game as favourites. But what I want to talk about the Premier League as such, right? Like, as a product, right? Do you think the Premier League has fallen off a little bit? And I say that because since Liverpool last won the league, 82 points to win the league is now the least amount of points that's required to have won. Like in the last 3 years, I think twice Arsenal and once Liverpool have taken City all the way till the end. I think the COVID title for Man City was probably the only one that was gifted to them, in the sense that there was no real other competition. And if you look around, right, like even the Premier League as a product, the 3 promoted teams went right back down for the second season in a row.
I don't think so. Yes, we talk about the relegation teams and those coming from promotion, and that's a totally different podcast episode altogether to analyze why that's the case. But if you look at the battle from essentially now, what is City till, actually to be fair, even Arsenal are 3 points or something, 3-4 points.
Yeah, so you're saying the battle for top 4 is still there, effectively.
But look at the team. No, but leave the battle, leave the fact that it's a battle, but look at the teams that are actually battling it out. You have Aston Villa, you have Newcastle, and you have Nottingham Forest of all teams. If I draw analogy to another sport like an F1 where you have the top team, like a Red Bull or something running away with it, but the fight for 2 or 3 and 4 and the midfield battle is crazy. So has the sport fallen? No, you just have one team that's had a really good year, but it's actually very exciting for a neutral watching. You look at the other sort of 5-6 teams that are battling out for 2-3 spots. It's insane. I think I look at that. Even for me, I think from March onwards, I never looked at where my team was. I'm always looking at the other teams to see, what is the next cool battle? And
which is a very nice feeling, right? Because I think you knew for a while, like it was a matter of like 2 weeks, 3, 4 or 5 that Liverpool would win and lift the title. And it was very nice, of course, like one more Crystal Palace goal and it would not have been in front of your own fans, of course, but here it was.
Shout out to Tarkowski for scoring that equalizer that gave us this opportunity. I mean, but honestly speaking, I think had you guys pushed us to the extreme, our run-in is not nice. Our last few games, we had Spurs. Okay, fine, Spurs are Spurs, but still Spurs, Chelsea, Arsenal, and then I think Crystal Palace who beat Aston Villa 3-0, and you had like some other, I don't know who the other teams are, but that's not an easy run, like last few games for Liverpool. And if we had been pushed, this would have been one of the best.
It would have been a very good title race,
You'd have had Arsenal actually being the third last game of the season, right?
Yeah.
Which if Arsenal and Liverpool were battling it out, imagine how important that game would have been.
Oh, it would have been an amazing season, I get. And look, the reason I've said this is probably maybe my bias as well, a little bit. Like I was very upset with the Arsenal board for a very disappointing January. I think Arsenal really missed the trick there because, I have been going into micro-analyzing Arsenal where, I keep saying, okay, Arsenal don't need a striker, because the numbers have said that we have scored 2 of the highest scoring seasons in the last 20 years with Kai Havertz and, now Mikel Merino up top. But everybody who is a rival fan has been like, what are you talking about? You guys need a striker. And for us not to invest in a striker, I think is probably what costs us. And I don't see other teams doing that. Like if, I don't know, Liverpool were in a title hunt and they were second in that title hunt and they knew that, Havertz is gone, Jesus is gone, Saka is gone. For large parts of the season, you would pay that extra 10 million and buy a striker. Now, I understand if Arsenal are loading up for a 400 million summer spend, which has never happened, but I understand that if that's the next level,
I think also what happened was in that season where you said Liverpool dropped off, where Virgil van Dijk got injured and everything. In January, we actually went for loan buys, right? We never really went and spent. We went for loan buys and said, let's just cover it for the next 6 months. And that actually helped us get to top. We were third, if I'm not mistaken. Third, we were just behind United. But with the. So I don't understand why Arsenal didn't. It was clear from the outset that they needed a striker. I think bringing someone with that, a good striker would have probably put a little bit of fear into. I don't think fear into Liverpool, but would have kind of showed the statement of intent from Arsenal being like, we're not going anywhere. But the moment that didn't play out and then you had the injuries, I was like,
it's done. It's done. And I think even Arteta knew that, and I think the board, I was actually thinking about this and I don't want to make.
When did you think that the title was done?
Off the pitch when Arsenal didn't sign anyone in January. On the pitch, as I said, when I saw the lineup versus Everton, and it was basically a second choice team. Like I don't think Arteta. That was
pretty recent.
March, I think.
Yeah. That's like fine, last month.
Yeah, like what I'm trying to say is because even in January, right? Like I remember a game where Liverpool dropped points and Arsenal played Brighton. And Saliba was committed a foul in the box and a penalty was given. Never a penalty in a million years. And Arsenal dropped points that game. And that game I felt like, okay, come on, guys, what's going on? It's been so many times, it's happening to Arsenal, but of course, it's because I'm watching 38 times my team play. I feel that way, but I still felt like, if those decisions don't go against Arsenal, and if Arsenal have a kind of good turn of events with injuries, we could push.
Yeah.
And when Arteta kind of also said that, we over my dead body, we're going to like give up and all that, he still put out a team, which could win. And Arsenal did win. And then I think we played well a couple of games. We dropped 2 more points somewhere down the line. And then he gave up. And when he gave up against Everton, I was like, okay, it's done. Because you're just focusing on the Champions League. And to be fair, they did show up in the Champions League so far. So
yeah, I know. That's been exciting to watch. It's like I said, I think the Champions League, while that is technically our forte in a way, but it sucks that we had to drop PSG of all teams.
And it's an interesting one, right?
Yeah.
Because PSG didn't really perform that well in the start of the season, and they were like okay, and then I think around that break between the group stages to the round of 16 or round of 16, they really amped it up, and they became this suddenly a team with like ballers all the way across the pitch. So that's there. But I do want to touch upon something that for those who don't know, like we have a WhatsApp group with a bunch of folks who are just talking about a lot of like the fallout or the aftermath of the party, right? And it went from very quickly from congratulations Liverpool have won the league to what is the legacy between Arne Slot right now and like Arteta and other managers. Like, has Arne Slot already overcome the legacy that someone else has? And honestly, I didn't agree with a lot of what was said there, because a lot of the discussions were around, hey, we have won a title, therefore it's 1-0 to me, and therefore it's like people who don't watch football are actually just looking at a number of titles. So having said that, this is a Klopp team, right, with a Slot performance, what do you think? Do you actually think that legacy debate actually makes sense?
Not necessarily. So there are a few points which I kind of agreed on. I don't think Slot's legacy surpasses Klopp's, at least. I think everyone needs to understand what Klopp has done for the entire club, right? What we were to what we've become. This guy single-handedly woke up a sleeping giant, built the club from scratch, made us change from doubters to believers, where we believed that every single season we were going to challenge for the title. We were essentially the only team, or we are the only team to ever break that Manchester City stronghold on the Premier League. We were the only team to have, kept them on their toes for a good 5 to 6 seasons before then Arsenal came into the fray. Now, Slot winning the Premier League in his first season, insane achievement, like never before. I only hope that the rub of the green was there in every sort of final that we played. Then we would have won the Carabao Cup. I think if we had won the Carabao Cup and the Premier League, I'd have been like, okay, this guy actually can win us the finals that maybe Klopp didn't have luck on his side in those finals. Like, we got to 3 Champions League finals. We got to, in the 5-6 years or 7 years that he was there, we won once and then we came close. How many years? He was
9. He was there 9 years.
9 years. Yeah. I think I understand the Arteta. I understand where some Arsenal fans are with Arteta. For me, that's the same place where Liverpool or Klopp was with Liverpool. I think when Klopp came in, everyone was like, he's got to win a trophy. He's got to win this. He spent so much, because we spent on Salah, Mane, Alisson. Especially when we bought Van Dijk and Alisson and we sold Coutinho. No one understands net spend, but anyone just said, okay, you've got these guys, now you've got to win a trophy.
Yeah.
And at that point, my argument was like, you can't. It's not like it's a given, right? And especially with this Man City team, it's not a given. Of course, then we went on to win the Champions League that year, and then the Premier League title the next year.
Following, yeah.
Yeah, but it never felt, for me, it wasn't like just because you bought it, you have to do well. But at the same time, I was of the opinion that if Klopp is to be regarded as one of the best managers, he had to have something to show for it.
Right. And I get that, right? Because your argument effectively was pre-Champions League Premier League versus post-Champions League Premier League, right? Like your perception of Klopp and his legacy was dictated by a trophy, which I completely understand, and I understand like time.
So for me, if Klopp had not won any trophy, the kind of foundation he built would have been good enough of a legacy for me, right? But for me to kind of go and make an argument or start a debate that Jurgen Klopp was as important to Liverpool as maybe Guardiola was for City or whatever, but I could never make that argument if Jurgen Klopp never won a trophy. I'm like, yes, he built this club. He made sure that he had these great players, and they came very close. They came second. They pushed City to the brink and always lost out by 1 point. But if he didn't have any trophies, I could not make the argument that Jurgen Klopp was a very, one of the most successful managers in the Premier League or had a better legacy than Pep Guardiola, right? I couldn't even bring the money argument, being like, oh, Pep won only because he had a lot of money. Like Klopp won it because despite not having spent as much. So that's the argument I can make. And
I completely get that, right? Like, so I get this argument, right? And maybe this is also coming from the fact that I have been an Arsenal fan for like 15 years, so I've never seen them lift a Premier League title at all, right? So I don't think that the title is what you look at really as it's a cherry on top, because the differences between winning and losing are so marginal. Like, what I'm trying to say is, last season, Arsenal were the best team on paper. Like, we scored the most amount of goals, we conceded the least. Trossard, puts the ball in the net against Aston Villa, we are champions. Like, it's a matter of millimeters, right? And out of those 38 games, the amount I celebrated throughout that, it doesn't change anything. Of course, I get the argument that 20 years down the line, you probably are not going to remember that season for coming second, right? And what I'm trying to say is
it's the journey more than the end goal of winning a trophy, kind of. I get that, and that's the sort of that's what I had with Klopp, right? Like, I would have loved the journey. I love the journey, right? The fact that he transformed us into this heavy metal beast of a machine where we were. I honestly speaking, I didn't like our title winning season, right? I had more fun watching us in 2017, 2018, where we were gifting goals away but scoring for fun.
Yeah, it was a fun team to watch. Yeah.
It was
indeed.
Oh my god, I had heart attacks, but I also had a lot of euphoria and love. And yes, it culminated in that really sad loss to Madrid, but I'm just saying overall that season was for me one of my favorite seasons, right, of Klopp. It just had full fun. Like City, we were 4-1 up, then we almost drew 4-4. It was like this crazy season, and I was like, this is exciting, and this is the sort of football I love, and I enjoyed the journey. Yes, but the point comes to when you're talking about legacy and whether this, manager, what is the legacy that this manager gave? I think, the trophy, at the end of the day, it's just nice to have something on that.
I completely get it, right? So, like, I understand why, the trophy argument comes. And I do think the conversation is very nuanced. And all I'm trying to say is I don't think that just because Liverpool broke that City juggernaut, that's the only template to follow to win a Premier League against Man City and the other 18 teams.
You've got to beat some. What do you mean that's I mean, I know we broke the juggernaut, but you got to beat all the other.
Sure, but like I've heard a lot of this argument that 4 years into Klopp's tenure, Klopp reached the Champions League final twice, won it once, and his fifth season was the one he went on to win the Premier League. Arteta has been at Arsenal for 5 years and that hasn't happened, right? So there is always that template which I felt like has always been the case, where Klopp has done this. We have beaten Man City doing this.
Yeah.
Therefore, it's the way to do it. And Arteta's a failure because he hasn't done that. And I just don't agree with that train of thought, right?
I don't get, like you said, it's a fine line between winners and losers, right?
Yeah.
I mean, in the Champions League 2022, we were the better team against Madrid, but all it took was that one goal by Vinicius.
Vinicius,
Thibaut Courtois was a god in goal.
Yeah.
Whatever we did, we just couldn't get past him. And
Yeah.
so that, or for example, the year that we did win the Champions League and we lost out to City by a point, I think Walker had a goal line clearance which was 23 centimeters something off, right? Like millimeters off.
Yeah.
It's that thin. It's that there's a popular picture of it that it's that paper thin. And while I don't see Mikel as well at all as a failure. I think he's done predominantly very, very well for the club. There is a question as to, is this the furthest that he can take the club, and is there someone else who can take you to the next level? Or do you need a season like this one where you need a Liverpool to drop off, or a City? You do need it. Come on. That being said, I mean, City, if they have the full force, they are the favourites, right? There's no doubt about it.
Well,
it's
I mean,
difficult.
Well, I think it's a good, like, I don't want to answer that question because I want to do a whole podcast on just that.
Yeah.
But I have one last question to ask you about this. Like, do you think, having watched Arne Slot and his Liverpool team for a year, do you think this is the manager who can bring Liverpool sustained success?
I think so. I think this wasn't a fluke. I think there is a lot of hunger and desire in the group, yes, but on paper we're not the best team. Even during games there were points where we tapered off, but what I loved about Slot was his tactical nuances and his tweaks that happened. Like, you could see that Liverpool, if they are behind at the break, come out and play a different style of football and sort of work. Now, sustained success would mean what? Like, you've won a trophy in your first year. Success is now going to be judged on. So it's actually harder now for Slot because he's won the Premier League in his first year. So now going forward, the conversation will always be that I always love being a sort of underdog and winning it. Now the fact is that we've won it. People are going to put us now in the conversation every year, right? And we are like, if you don't win a trophy, it's considered a sort of failure, and which I don't like as a fan. Which I think if you're a manager, you're supposed to take it on your sleeve, and that's how you prove yourself or your team. I still think, in terms of success, I don't see any major drop off. I think he's been a very humble guy. He's been he's shown quite a good sort of good head on his shoulders and a good managerial capability. So I don't see that drop off happening. And I've also seen a lot of like Fairnood fans on YouTube and all saying that you've not yet seen the best of Arne Slot, which makes me even more sort of excited. But I think sustained. It's not like a Brendan Rodgers 2013 season. If we won the season then, it was a fluke, because not a fluke, but it just down to Suarez and Sturridge. And probably Gerrard. It wasn't anything to do with tactical brilliance or a manager that was head and shoulders above everyone.
Well, the reason I ask, right, and this is me playing a little bit devil's advocate here, because you say that in a season when Salah has close to 70 goal and assist contributions in a season, right? And you say that when, the way I look at it, Klopp has done part one of Liverpool rebuild, where his Klopp's last season was basically the first season with a brand new midfield playing together, and this is the second season, so everyone have really gelled. And then there's part two of that rebuild, which needs to clear out a lot of players who are running down their contracts, a lot of players who are in the wrong side of 30. And it's about how Arne Slot and, of course, the technical staff in the football operations side of things who are able to recycle the team. So in the next couple of seasons, I would want to see who Liverpool are able to bring in, what talent are they able to attract, and what identity that Arne Slot is going to bring in. Because so far, I'm sure that there's a lot of hype, and I get the hype, but I haven't seen either the board back the manager up or the manager bringing in anyone, because they haven't really signed anyone, right? And I think that's what gives them that sustained success.
My only concern, and I think winning a Premier League and winning trophies will help Arne Slot, is that unlike a Jurgen Klopp, he's not a household manager name. He's not a Jose Mourinho. He's not a whatever Pep Guardiola or a Jurgen Klopp or a Don Carlo or this. So in the sense that players don't immediately just want to work, you want to play for him just because he's a Jurgen Klopp. Like you had an Mbappe who was very interested at one point to join Liverpool just because it's Jurgen Klopp. He won't join Liverpool because it's Arne Slot. So probably that's going to be the concern, as to see what is the kind of players. Like he won't be able to, I don't think, be able to attract the biggest players or biggest names. But that's where Michael Edwards comes in, because he also was responsible for building Liverpool 1.0 on the back of not so very popular names like a Mane or a Salah or a Van Dijk who came from Southampton or an Alisson who came from Roma. It's not exactly the biggest name, but we made them superstars. So I think, or Andy Robertson. So it's going to be a good mix of that, which is what I think Jurgen sort of got away from him later on, where he started just looking at sort of bigger names, bigger fees, and it felt like, hold on, buddy, like you've built this entire almost Moneyball system, so let's not go into like I don't think Darwin Núñez is someone that Michael Edwards would have gone for, or the old regime would have gone for.
I have a very controversial take, and you were saying that if anyone would get cancelled, it's for what I'm about to say.
Yeah.
I think it's a mistake giving players on the wrong side of 30 contracts. I know there are exceptions like Salah. You just cannot let him go for free. So I understand that. But is this like Liverpool saying, hey, we want him for 2 more years? And also for Van Dijk, it's probably the same thing, right? And I just feel that, it's a very good opportunity to get fresh blood in. But if Liverpool's planning to have, another year of Salah and then sell him to Saudi League and get some money in, makes sense, right? But having him on such fat wages I have never seen that work in the Premier League. And I've never seen that work at Arsenal. Like Arsenal, a huge reason why Arsenal and Arteta took years into that rebuild is because they had to slash their wage bill and all of that, right? So...
Yeah. But I still don't know. I mean, I don't exactly know. I think it's close to around 400 is what he must be getting right now, which is not too far of, 350 to 400. It's not. Yeah, we do have a huge wage bill. We do have a huge agent bill as well, which is a little bit of a concern. But honestly, I think, I don't mind having Salah for another year, and maybe then he gets to decide where he wants. But letting him go for free as well as Van Dijk would have been
disaster. And Trent.
And Trent. I don't think Trent we would have anyway. It's very difficult to get much out of him.
They're all 100 million players, man. Like, that's my point.
But in the sense that Trent, we can't put him onto the market, right? Only if... I think if he had a contract, I don't think Liverpool would have sold him at all.
True.
But it's just that you didn't have a contract, so it's just kind of free. So that's a bit of a tricky thing, but I normally also wouldn't have given too many. I think the issue with Salah was more that we wanted to give him 1, he wanted 2, so we said, okay, just give him 2. We'll take it after 1 year. I still think he's got it in him. He may not have the numbers like he did this season, but the reason is also because I think Arne Slot let him off the hook from his defensive duties, which is what he told yesterday. So he basically made a statement, or he said that when Arne Slot was talking to me during preseason, I gave him a sort of request, which is let me off my defensive duties and I will show you what I can offer. And he's got the numbers now to prove it. So it's very difficult to deny that. But
Sure.
I think it's good to have these kind of experienced players still in the club. But I understand that you either groom someone like a Harvey Elliott in his position and let Salah sort of help him become the next big thing, or you go looking into the market. I still think while we are quite heavy up front, we still do need a few changes here and there. I think the squad does need. I do see a lot of change happening this year. Hopefully, I do see some exodus, and I hope not too many, but I do see a few names probably looking to leave, and I wouldn't begrudge them against it. But it's interesting to see who we bring in, because
exactly. And I really don't want Liverpool to go in that Ten Hag United route where he goes with familiarity. I would really like to see a lot of names, and I think when you have both Edwards and someone from a football operations side who's not the coach really and a coach, you have that balance.
We did go for Zubimendi. It just turned out that he didn't want to move at that point in time. But Zubimendi is not a Feyenoord player or an Eredivisie player. So they clearly is. I think with Richard Hughes and Michael Edwards and Arne Slot, I think there shouldn't be an issue there. I think with Ten Hag, it just became that you get me whoever you can, man.
Yeah.
Who do you know who can play for this damn club? And he's like, yeah, I know a few people.
Yeah.
And also, I don't know, man. Honestly, like, more than anything, it's even if a good player comes into a shit team or a shit environment, you can't do much.
True.
Right? So,
True.
But I think in terms of what I want to see this summer, definitely fullbacks, major concern. I think Robertson is over. I think he could play a good backup role. Yeah, he can play a good backup role. I don't think Tsimikas can now be that backup role. I think Tsimikas moves on. We get a proper left back in there. Love like a Kirkes or someone like that. On the right back, I don't mind Connor Bradley being given a shot. It's obviously he's been very promising. And get another backup now, whether you want to do it from within the academy or not. And that's only if Trent goes. And I don't get Trent. Sometimes he acts like he wants to leave. On the other hand, he starts kissing the badge and tapping on the badge. So it feels like he wants to stay. So I have no idea where the guy's mind is. But I don't mind. Honestly, if you were to tell me out of the three that Trent is going at this point, I don't think... See, if it was Klopp's team, I would have been like, oh, Trent is the most vital player in that squad. But I think the way we're playing right now, he doesn't need to be that. He's not the focal point for the attack.
Yeah. And then I think you guys need like a midfield, like that six, like a Zubimendi type player, which you guys were looking for, right?
I really love Endo. I hope he doesn't leave. I don't mind Gravenberch as well. Maybe if we get one more midfielder in that position, great. I think we sell Joe Gomez, Kwanzaa. Maybe we get Kwanzaa stays, Joe Gomez goes, and we get another centre back. We do need one. Now my only question is for the goalkeepers. I think we've got one of the best two goalkeepers pairings, or the best pairing in the league. I think Kelleher and Alisson. When Kelleher stepped in for Alisson in the season, never really missed as much. And then the main thing is we need a striker. I think Nunes is gone. I don't know about Diaz after winning the league. Maybe he wants to go to Barcelona if at all. But those are the only two. Jota, I don't know, depending on his injury crisis that he gets. But
that's still like 4 players, right? Like you just mentioned, like 4 or 5 players. So I mean, that seems like a active summer, but not like an Exodus summer completely. Which 5 in, 5 out, it's fair. I mean, it's reasonable. Like you're not expecting something a bit too crazy. And I guess I more or less agree with all the names you mentioned. But I think again, it depends on who that striker is and a potential left back, left winger, like who they are.
A lot of people saying Isak. I like Isak, but I don't know entirely. I think we've never really worked well with a proper... proper.
But come on, I mean, Isak can do everything, man. Like, I think Isak is one of those players who is a game changer. Like, Isak can go to any top 6 team and instantly make them favourites for the title. Yeah, maybe not Tottenham and United.
He's a lot more. He's a lot more fluid than I initially thought he would be. Seeing him in Newcastle. But yeah, I would like him as but he's going to cost a hell. No way Newcastle letting him go for anything cheap. Honestly, I think it should be an active summer. I hope it is. I hope, you always fear that everyone's going to be like, oh, you won the league with this team. Why don't you?
Let's take it easy.
Manager,
yeah.
So he's definitely going to be asking for his own players, right, to put his own stamp on.
Which makes complete sense. So, well, that's 4 more games where Liverpool can just hang their feet up and relax. They have nothing really to play for, and they can lift the title against Crystal Palace end of May in front of their fans for the first time. The parade is going to be amazing, and congratulations to you. Congratulations to all the other Liverpool fans watching. Well deserved. But yeah, now it's the top 4 race. It's the Champions League, and see you guys next week, because I have a couple more podcasts to do before we start next season. But yeah, have a nice celebration, and thank you for being on the podcast, Pradi.
Thank you for having me. It was great. Love always speaking with you of all things football, and especially when we have such a nice podcast. It's always nice to talk about Liverpool winning. But yeah, I mean, all the best for your Champions League. I'll be watching it with great intention to see how that all unfolds. It's going to be a fun 2 games.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun 2 games.
Thank you for listening to this guy talk about Liverpool for many, many minutes, for at least, I don't know, however long this podcast is.
Thank you, guys. Take care.